Good morning, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live on our Patreon channel, and it's frustrating for me. I actually recorded this video this morning and then deleted it. Can you believe it? Oh my gosh, yes. All right, let's try it again, and maybe I can be as accurate as I was the first time. Who's stealing the water? Those of you that remember November the 5th, we actually did this video. Now we're here almost a month later. We're December the 2nd, 2022. And we did the video about who's stealing the water. This was what we had first found out, is that there were some very well-known reporters that came to the White House. They had already been pressuring the White House for the Freedom of Information Act because they had video footage of a spacecraft pulling water from lakes and things like that, and evidently the aircraft was headed to the moon, and they had proof of this. So that caused quite a stir. We actually looked into this as well, and it looked like to us it was alien aircraft initially from the report we were getting. And then I have a FEMA engineer who I'm in close contact with that comes to me and asks me about whether or not we're transporting humans to the moon. Well, those of you that know, this past week I was actually in Washington, D.C. I was able to get some answers to these questions, and we came back to the subject about transporting people to the moon. And of course, it went right back to this initial story about sucking water up and taking water to the moon. Yeah, believe it or not, all of that's connected together. All right, now, before I get into this, let me also share with you that I am going to be doing just a slew of videos here on Patreon this weekend, hopefully, and going into the first of the week. A lot of information I need to share with you. We've been breaking down some of those things that Mike from around the world over on Paul Begley's program. He's been talking about things that are happening over on his Council of Time broadcast. And there's just some things. He's leaving blanks in there, and I understand why. I know why Mike has to leave blanks, because of the position he's in. He's only allowed to release so much information. So while I was in D.C., I took the time to find out deeper about those things, and I was able to get the information that we can fill in a lot of blanks on things. And it's going to startle you. We're going to be talking about, Mike talks about the moon rides the veil. What does that really mean? We're going to be getting into the atmospheres and the different atmospheres of the Earth and what that does, how that blocks the view of space, because he talks about if you took a 10 megapixel camera and you were to take a picture of space outside of the magnetosphere, which is not shown in this particular graph here now, you would not have a single empty space on there. Well, we're going to talk about what really is out there. He talked about, he alluded to some ideas about things that you might see. He said, what would cause man's heart to fail for fear when the Bible says that about things coming upon the earth? He said, would it be an asteroid? Would it be UFO invasion? Things like that. He said, no. He said, but if what you knew that holds everything together was suddenly gone, that would cause panic to the heart. And then he alluded to what those events were, but he does it a little separated in his video. A little over here, a little over there, maybe 10 minutes apart, half hour apart, something like that. So you don't really know how to connect the dots, but he's actually giving you the information. And I know what that information is. I know what he's talking about when he talks about the solid object going through the International Space Station, and yet apparently two solid objects, and yet they're not colliding, just like that. Yeah, it is going to cause fear. That video, though, will not just be on Patreon. That will be made public, because I feel like that is very, very important. He talked about, too, about these ghost channels and how they talk. They have one thing consistent of all of them, even if they don't like each other. They're consistent about saying that a spirit or a ghost takes a lot of energy for them to move an object. He said that's totally false. He's right, it is false. But there's a reason why the government wants you to believe that it's true. We're going to go into that as well. That'll be here on Patreon. So these are just some of the many things. And now he's getting into the subject on that one video here with Paul Begley, which on Paul's channel it's already been removed. Wow. Nomadic Nation, though, did carry it. And he's talking about Carrington events, several of them right in a row. I don't even know if I even shared that info. Well, yeah, I did share it with you, but it's not quite the same as what you're thinking. I talked about an object that the moon or that the sun would spit out like a meteorite type thing, and it would be near the end of the decade. Well, we were in discussions about these Carrington events during that particular meeting that I had there, and they would be worse. Now, the only difference is timing. Again, Mike gives one kind of timing, I get another kind of timing, and I have a feeling that maybe that's because they're trying to be a little bit elusive. They don't want to cause panic, so they throw out these different time frames out there. Normally the ones that I get are always later, but it seems to be that it could be earlier, like Mike is saying as well. So I'm going to be going into those issues as well. First, I need to find, I haven't even listened to the video yet to see what he's saying on it. I've just heard bits and pieces about it. But yes, I've already been in the meetings on those issues as well. And so we'll be talking about that. Now, let's go back here to the whole thing about what's going on here on the moon. All right, are we taking people to the moon? The answer was yes. They are preparing to take the elite, some of the elite to the moon. We've been moving skilled, labored people there. The moon, by the way, we do produce water on the moon. We do have deep underground bases there, but they are not ones that we constructed. As this particular article here came out that said China releases moon footage of alien bases. All right, now I don't know the authenticity of these photos, if there's any truth to that part there, but I do know that deep underground of the moon, we have bases there that are, as I've been told, were created by extraterrestrials. And it wouldn't be right there where you're seeing the picture at there. It's more up here to the top left-hand corner, a little bit over in that area there is where they're actually the entrances of these bases are. I asked, though, the question, though, why are they taking people to the moon? And they said they're preparing for some of the elite to be able to go there during the time of the binary system as it comes through. They know the moon will be impacted by a lot of asteroids just like the Earth will. But they said the bases there are so deep inside of the moon that they feel like that they can withstand any impacts that hit the moon whatsoever. So the moon would be, people that are on the moon would be spared. And I said, well then, so, okay, I got it. And then I was referred back to the video that I did initially, the information I was given back here back on November 5th. They said, if you remember, we talked about there being an alien craft taking water up to the moon, and they said it actually was our own spacecraft. It was the TRB-3s, and this here was actually a Oriental site there. I translated it to English here for you, and I don't know if this video is authentic or not, but I'm just mainly showing it to you for the sake of a visual. This is allegedly a TRB-3 filmed over Paris, France there. I have actually seen one of these spacecraft for myself personally. We have 20 of these. So I've actually got to visualize one. It does look very similar to what you see there. When I saw it, I was using night vision. It was over Dallas, Texas. Or not Dallas, actually, it was Houston. I believe it was Houston, Texas is where it was at. So we'll get into that. Another thing I want to get into too, by the way, too, and I don't want to forget this, so I'll go ahead and say it now. Mike on his COT broadcast talked about how that if you lived in Arizona and you could really see beyond what they call the veil, he said the amount of traffic, and he's talking about space traffic and stuff there, he said is unbelievable. Well, if you remember, I actually shared with you a little while back how that when I was at Dulce, New Mexico there, we were using night vision. We were up on the roof that night, the hotel we were staying at, and we were watching, and we actually watched 9 different spacecraft just within an hour's period of time coming across there. I didn't know that it was even possible to see that many. And then I was told that was a very high traffic area. Now, when it comes to alien aircraft, you pretty much need the night vision, especially when they're flying at higher altitudes, because that's what helps to do that reflection off of their craft. Because, as I've been told, the reason why you don't see them so easily is because of all these different atmospheres that we have. That's another reason why we really don't know what's out in space. I'm going to get into that, though, with you. I'm going to really want you to be able to understand that, because we're going to talk about what's really out there and how the Hubble telescope, the second one that we sent up, once it pierced the veil, every photograph was classified. Well, you're going to find out what's in those photos. Unfortunately, I won't be able to share the photos with you, but you will actually know what's there. So so we are actually going up to the moon, taking water up there, because as I was told, though, there's not enough water to sustain life up there. Not that many people, even though we can produce water there, still not quite enough. So they have been using these triangular aircraft to take water up there, and even that they believe is going to be a tremendous challenge for us there. So, not to mention, NASA says that we're going to have humans living on the moon within this coming decade. Well, hate to break it to you, NASA probably already knows it too, at least those that are in the know. We've been there for quite a while anyway already, and we're going to be going into a lot of that other information as well, going all the way back to the also going to talk to you about where Mike talks about you have to have permission to go to space, and you have to have an escort. I'm going to tell you who that escort is, where the permission comes from. All this is going to be shocking. We're going to fill in the blanks. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Blessings to you, and thank you for listening.